Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council special meeting for Tuesday, June 11th, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present, and pursuant to section 52-4-207, electronic meetings of the Open and Public Meetings Law, Councilmember Gochner will participate in the meeting via teleconference. We'll now turn the time over to Vice Chair Garner for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would everyone please rise and repeat after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join us now in a moment of silence. Thank you. First is a request to be on the agenda, Ricky Hatch from the Weber County Clerk or Auditor. Welcome. Right on cue. A presentation regarding the June special election by vote. Or by mail, sorry. Vote by mail.
Thank you, Council. I apologize. I'm breathing a little heavily because I took the stairs. Just came from Davis County, and one of the joys of working in Ogden is traffic is not heavy. Whereas in Davis County, it's not quite the same. I'm here to talk about the June special election, which has the Weber County Library bond question, and it also has the Ogden School District question. And I'm here as the official over the elections over running the elections. And I'm not here supporting the bond or the levy or opposing. I just wanted to give you some information about the process of the election and some of the controls, because I'm sure that you'll receive and may have received already some questions about the process and is this a controlled by mail election. So first off, let me start with the process. We mailed approximately 103,000 ballots out to registered voters throughout the county, and they should have received those about a week and a half ago. Voters have three options to vote in this election. First off, they can just drop their ballot back in the mail. It'll come back to us. There's no cost as far as postage to the voter. That just comes back to our offices. The second one is between now and Elections Day, voters can drop off their ballots at any one of 6 vote centers throughout the county. The closest one here is right kitty corner at the Weber Center. They can come drop it off in a secure ballot box. And then on Election Day, voters can either go to one of those vote centers and drop off their ballot again in the secure drop box, or if they would prefer to vote on a machine, they can vote on a machine on Election Day. Any of those options are possible. If the voter is going to mail the ballot, it has to be postmarked the day before the election. That's June 24th. If they forget to mail it, or if they haven't received a ballot and want to vote, they just come into one of the vote centers. They can go to any one throughout the county and vote there. I just want to talk briefly about the process or the controls that we have in place to help make sure that this election is safe and secure and that their ballot is indeed secret. First off, whenever we transport, touch, move, process, scan anything with these ballots, they are under lock and key. Whether it's in our locked election office. When we're not processing or looking at a ballot or an envelope, they sit inside a stored room within a locked storage room within the locked elections office. So we keep them under lock and key at all times. Even when we're moving them from floor to floor in the county building, they are in a locked cage. So we want to make sure that they're controlled throughout the entire process. Secondly, no single elections employee ever handles a ballot alone. We always have at least 2 elections employees, personnel, processing or looking at the ballots to make sure. That just reduces the risk of anything. If someone's going to do something wrong, that would have to be collusion at that point. And so we want to make sure that we have at least 2 full sets of eyes on the process, and usually it's more. Our employees compare every voter's signature manually with the signature that is in the state voter database. So when you sign you sign your voter affidavit on the back of the envelope, we look at and compare your signature with what we have on file. If we have any questions, if we wouldn't count the ballot because the signatures don't match, we will call or contact the voter, and we can either send a new ballot or they can come in and make sure that that's in fact their signature.
Can I ask a question about that?
You bet.
Before you move on? How do you know whose ballot that's supposed to be? Just by the signature?
No, every ballot, if you look down at the bottom, it has the voter's name on it, and there's a barcode that's linked specifically to that voter.
is there?
So we can
Yeah, my wife and I
those
were
in.
looking at them today and thought, how do they know that that's not somebody else's crazy signature?
Yeah.
So there is an identifier on the ballot then.
Sorry, it's not on the ballot, it's on the envelope.
Okay.
And that's an important point, and I'll get to that in just a second.
But when the signatures do not match and you contact them and they don't come in or respond, then you throw out that ballot then?
Correct.
Okay.
We won't process the ballot if the signatures don't match and we don't hear back from the voter. The number of incidents, at least so far in this election, of where we look and they say, just this signature just doesn't match, it's pretty small. We've been really surprised. And before that's rejected, it goes through 2 levels of managerial review. And we will not reject a ballot for that reason without my looking specifically at the signature with our elections director. So it goes through 2 staff levels, and then our elections director looks at it, and if she still says, I don't think so, then I come and look at every one of those.
So do you have a checkoff list to say, well, we've contacted so-and-so on such and such a day, or we...
Yes, we track that in our in the state voter database.
Okay.
Track all mail pieces that are sent out to the voters, phone calls, and discussions with the voter.
How do you gather the list? I received 3 ballots at my house, and there are only 2 registered voters that live at my house, and one of them was for somebody who hasn't lived there for 5 years.
That's a good question. The voter database is maintained at the state level, but the county clerk is responsible for making sure it's clean and scrubbed. We have to do that within lots of state and federal guidelines, elections laws, which helps make sure that we don't mess with stuff. It's great. It does prevent us from making changes for sometimes things that are obvious. We get a piece of mail back that says, this person no longer lives at this address. We can't just go in and remove them from the database. We have to send an additional confirmation card to that address. And then, if we don't hear anything back from that, we still can't remove them. We have to wait 2 election cycles, presidential election cycles, before we can actually completely remove them. And my guess is that's probably in the middle of that process. And I like those strict laws because I tell you, it's a scary thing removing a voter from the database. I don't know why, but it's really, you feel bad, and to me it's a serious thing because the right to vote is so sacred. You just want to protect that at all cost. And the drawback for that is our registration rolls are probably a little bloated because the voters don't think to contact us and say, hey, I'm moving out of state or out of county. You can take me off. And sometimes they don't register in their new place, and so we don't get notification of that. So we just leave them on there. And
So if they moved within the county and registered at their new address, I wouldn't be getting, I know this person moved out of the county, so
right.
that's why.
Or
Okay.
even if they moved out of the county and registered wherever they are, we would get notification of that.
Okay.
We're getting to the point where if they move out of state and register, that there's a central shared, not a shared database, but a notification process. That's close to happening, but that's a little bit more complex. Throughout the entire process, we use reconciliations and control totals to make sure that no additional ballots are inserted into the process and that no ballots are removed from the process. I've observed this and filled out plenty of reconciliations forms myself. It's a good, solid process. Every ballot is accounted for. Finally, I just want to talk briefly about the secret ballot because that's an important issue. We use specially designed envelopes to help preserve the secret ballot. Our elections workers do not have access to the ballot. It is in a sealed portion of the envelope while they're performing the signature verification and making sure that the voter is registered and at the current address and everything. Only after they do that is the ballot opened. And once the ballot is opened and retrieved, there is no identifying markers on the ballot that can link that ballot back to that voter. So once the ballot's removed from the envelope, that cannot be put back. We can't link those two back together. So it truly is a secret ballot, because all of our processing of the actual voter information is done without any access to the ballot. And then when the ballot is scanned, that's done without any access to who that voter is. It's a good process. We so far have a pretty good turnout. Our average turnout in June elections is between 10 and 15%, and turnout so far in this election is about 20%. And we still have 2 or 3 more weeks to go, and so we're excited for that. We're really hoping for 40, but we're already almost double what our normal turnout is. So we're pleased to have a good turnout so the voters can participate.
What do you do with the ballots that come to you that the postage process is kind of mutilated? They may look tampered with. Is there any attempt to? I think you wouldn't want to have tampered with ballots, and maybe the post office would maybe make one that looked like that.
That's a good question. We actually pick up. On the receiving end, we go and pick up the ballots directly from the post office. So the damage would have to have occurred prior to the post office releasing the ballots to us. It could happen, and I think we have had one ballot that came back. It was so destroyed that we could not identify who cast it. And in that case, since we couldn't verify it, we just set it aside and it'll be stored but not counted. Did that answer your question?
Well, I guess my concern was that could happen, and you verified that it could. So.
Yeah, and if we do receive an envelope that has been sliced open, upon our receiving it, then we would contact the voter to make sure.
That's when you would contact the voter?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We haven't had any incidents of that so far.
So they would have to fill out a new ballot then at that time, right?
They could come in and verify, or they could just say, yeah, just throw it away and send me a new one, and we'll do that. We have a way that we can void the ballot that was sent to them and send out a new one. You had a question.
Mr. Hatch, on June 25th, the day of the election, if a voter has submitted a ballot, how do we prevent them from or notify them that they've already voted?
That's an excellent question, and I woke up the other night in a panic with that exact scenario. What happens once we receive their ballots in, we scan those, and those go into the state voter database. The state voter database is replicated onto laptops, which we then take out to our vote centers. And so the vote centers have evidence that voter has submitted a by-mail ballot and that has already voted. Now, they may swear up and down, I did not do that. And if that's the case, even if they don't swear and jump up and down, we will let them vote provisionally. And what that just means is that vote is not considered in the final tally until after we've done our homework, which we do in about a week and a half after the election. And we address every provisional ballot. We research the voters' activity. We contact voters when necessary and make sure that this provisional ballot either counts or doesn't count. And our experience has shown that about 75% of the provisional ballots end up counting. They end up being valid.
Is this a quicker process, and what about the expense? Is the expense less than running a traditional election process?
That's a good question. That's actually the most common question we get, and the process is slightly more expensive. We calculate it to be about 30% more expensive if you don't count the cost of voting machines. And we have taken that, we haven't considered that cost, but voting machines are quite expensive and require a lot of labor throughout the year because we have to test and do logic and accuracy tests on every voting machine that is used. We have over 600 machines in Weber County. That's a lot of manpower. So the actual real true cost, I don't know because I don't know the exact costs of the machines and the maintenance that we do over time. As far as workload at the county, the by-mail spreads it out a little bit. Normally we have 2 spike days a year where we go from 3 or 4 employees to 500 or 600 and then back down. And what this does is it lowers the spike and widens it out. So we're super busy now, and we'll be super busy for about a month, about 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the election, but not as busy as we are normally on election day. So from an elections administration standpoint, we kind of like it. It's a little bit easier to plan for from a staffing viewpoint. And the poll workers, one nice benefit that we found is the poll workers that we have at our vote centers, they're the cream of the crop, the best poll workers we have. And when you have poll workers, you train them as best you can, but the fact is you can't train them on every scenario that happens, and sometimes we have some really strange scenarios happen at polling locations, and if they can't reach us, they have to make decisions. And with a by-mail election, that risk is dramatically reduced, and that's a benefit that we've seen from the by-mail election. These are good questions. I like this.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, any other questions?
Thank you.
One other question that we've been asked is this a permanent change? And we don't know yet. The state legislature has given hints through some other legislation that they are looking at this as a possible option statewide. As of right now, Weber County we haven't made any decisions. We want to see, this is really a good chance for us to look at it and look at the drawbacks and the pluses, but we've certainly not made any decisions on whether this is going to become a permanent.
Seems like it might make a difference as to what you're voting on. If you're voting on propositions and things, it seems like this is maybe a good solution, but I'm a tad uneasy with it when voting for people. Because that's when you really want people to be educated and have a high information.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Are the voters as informed or not? And I can see arguments both ways. The one advantage that I do see is you're proactively placing the ballot in front of the voter several weeks before they have to cast it. And I can see an advantage there. I know the local newspaper has come out and said, well, it's convenience voting. It might encourage voter apathy. And voter apathy is a serious problem. I don't know if this solves it or makes it worse. That's
Me either.
Valid questions. Thanks so much. And
Thank you for your time.
Apologize for the heavy breathing at the beginning.
Yeah.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Okay. Next up is the one item under common consent. It's proposed ordinance 2013-27 for the budget amendment.
I'll make a motion that we approve the item under common consent 2013-27 to set the public hearing for June 25th, 2013 for the budget amendment.
I will second.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Garner and a second from Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-27 and set the public hearing for June 25th, 2013. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next is approval of minutes. First is minutes of the regular meeting of August 28th, 2012, and the work session of October 9th, 2012. Councilmember Wicks.
Thank you, Chair Blair. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
And the minutes of the joint study session of November 13th, 2012, the work session of January 8th, 2013, and the regular meeting of April 23rd, 2013. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, Chair Blair, thank you. I have also reviewed those minutes, found them to be accurate, and with that would make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Heyer to adopt the minutes and a second from Councilmember Wicks. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next is reports from the administration. First is the fireworks ordinance amendments.
Our fire marshal will be presenting, and they had a good save today at Mount Ogden Junior High.
We
So
did. Our crews did a good job up there.
you might just want to just give them a little update.
Sure, you bet.
What happened there?
Hi, Brandon Thewison, Fire Marshal. We had a little incident up at Mount Ogden Junior High this morning. Some crews were working in there trying to get the old asbestos tile removed. They were actually trying to get the mastic off the floor. And in that process, we're not sure what chemicals they were using yet, but there was some in there, and they caused a spark when they connected an extension cord, which caused a fire. So some damage to the building. They'll have to do some repairs, but luckily nobody hurt. No kids in there since it was summer, so we're good that way. So with tonight's business, I'll try and be brief and just kind of give you a quick rundown on why we had to do this ordinance change. This seems to be a moving target for us. If you look back through the history, we've come the last several years needing to kind of make minor changes to our fireworks ordinances in the city. And a lot of that's driven because the state keeps making changes. As you know, a few years ago, as a state, we allowed aerial fireworks to come in. And with that, they saw an increased revenue in taxes. And so as things occurred last year, we had a pretty dramatic fire season last year, if you recall. A lot of major wildfires all over the state. In fact, some of those have been in the news even today, talking about trying to recoup costs on those. But as we went into the legislative session this year, we had two things coming at us. One was the adoption of the fire code for the state, and the other was some changes that they wanted to make to the firework and fire restrictions. And so in House Bill 289 that was ran through this year, what they did was they required that in order to do fire restrictions, including firework restrictions in a municipality, that the legislative body be involved in that. And so that the local fire code official, the chief, we would make a determination and have your involvement in that. And so we've had to make some changes to our ordinance to accommodate some of what the state wanted. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through some of those, but kind of in summary, we cleaned up some language. We had to predetermine what our hazardous environmental areas would be in the city. And as you read in there, we have a good definition of where those are, which include all of our East Bench down through our wooded areas along the Parkway, Fort Buenaventura, kind of our brushier, more hazardous areas, open fields, those kind of things. So we had to kind of determine that up front and make that definition for our city, what those areas were. And then as the ordinance is written before you, what it allows us to do is be flexible with our restrictions so we can react to environmental conditions as they occur. One thing that we didn't want to have to do was come out and place restrictions way ahead of time when they weren't needed. So we wanted to have the flexibility to watch our conditions and make a judgment call closer to the time of fireworks so that people can enjoy those if they can. And so this will allow us to do that. Once if we were to enact a restriction, what happens is that we'll go to the recorder's office, they publish that in the paper, and you would receive a notice that we've done that restriction. You can review it. I would be here to represent why we did that, answer any questions that you might have. So that's kind of a really short rundown on it. There's a lot of papers here I'm sure that you've received that go along with this. When we do these, we typically will put a map out, send that out to the paper to publish. Some of the difficulties there is that it turns out to be such a small size when they print it. But we do everything we can to let the public know about those restrictions. So that's just kind of a real brief summary of what you have before you. You have questions for me?
Are you still going to have the direct number for people to report violators this year like you did last?
Yeah, we just have them call the non-emergency number at
Okay.
dispatch, and then they can dispatch will go through their procedures to send either a police officer out or a fire crew out to check on it.
Great.
Will we make any additional restrictions if we become a very dry year more so than other years? Can we heighten our restrictions because of that, or no?
Well, we could, and that's what this allows us, is to have that flexibility to react to those conditions, because they do change. Right now, this year seems to be pretty on track with our data that we're receiving, but it's so dynamic because it's kind of like trying to predict the weather. You don't know how it's going to be next week, so we really try and keep an eye on it closely. And as things progress and they get more hazardous, then we want to be able to enact a restriction in an area, or say Fort Buenaventura, because of the cotton that comes off of the trees. Typically, we'll have a short period of time where we need to restrict open fires out there, and then we lift those when the cotton goes away. So those are kind of those flexibility things and issues that we were concerned with, and wanted to make sure that we were able to do, so that for timing for people, so that we don't have to put a restriction out that covers a time period when it's not needed.
So would you make that determination then?
Yes, I do that along with my staff, and I usually consult with Chief Matthew before we enact a restriction. So we do that based on a scientific, not emotional response to the situation. We try and look at moisture contents and things like that drive it, rather than just, we feel like it's a bad situation. So
I was going to say risk to structure and other things that you look at.
What's that?
Also risk, what is there structures nearby and things like that.
Correct. I mean, we try and take all that into account, as much as we can. So.
Well, we know this is a moving target, and it's a tough job for you. So thank you.
Well, and all it takes is a couple really windy 95-degree days, and it completely changes everything.
Exactly. I mean, it can change dramatically in a week's time. And if we receive rainstorms, I'm praying for rain over the next month, because
So are we.
Yeah, that'll make life easier for a lot of us. So, but it is very much a moving target. So.
But my understanding is there are no restrictions on fireworks sales, right?
No,
We're still allowing.
they are, and we don't have the ability to restrict sales. The state's new rules this year, just for your information, fireworks sales begin June 23rd and run through July 27th. And we already have a large stack of business license applications that I've been sending out to my 2 deputies to go inspect and get them up and running for those sales. So we have a full month of fireworks sales, but we have a limited discharge period when they can do those. If everybody would just adhere to it, that'd be nice.
So it still includes the 4th and the 24th, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Can you review the discharge dates that
You bet.
were there?
So our sales, like I say, June 23rd to July 27th. Discharge is between the hours of 11 a.m. and 11 p.m., except for on the holidays, and then they're allowed to go later. So July 1st through July 7th, they're allowed to discharge. July 4th being extended time period till midnight. July 21st to the 27th, again on the 24th they can go till midnight. And December 31st from 11 in the morning to 1 a.m. For New Year's. And then there's a provision for Chinese New Year's Eve, which is kind of a moving date, but it's 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. That day.
Thank you.
Okay.
No other questions? Thank you.
Actually, I just had one quick question.
Okay.
On the last page of the ordinance, under Section C, it just talks about where the notice will be posted, and just wondered if it would be worthwhile to have that on our website as well.
Certainly, and last year we did get that up on our website. We put a link to the map and had that on there for the areas that were restricted. So we definitely, that's a good idea, and we'll try and do that again this year. Anything
Okay.
else? Okay.
I think that covers it. Thank you. We will now receive public input regarding the fireworks ordinance amendments. Seeing none. Any further discussion from council members?
Seems there's no further discussion. I'll make a proposal that we adopt ordinance 2013-28.
I second it.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Garner to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-28 and a second from from Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gochner,
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier,
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks,
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes. Next is a rezone of 420 13th Street. Mr. Montgomery.
Mr. Chair and members of the council, you have before you tonight a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding a petition that had been filed to consider rezoning the property at 420 13th Street from its present C2 commercial zoning to R16. Now the property, let me zoom back out here, is this home. It had a fire in it a couple years ago and has been aborted since that time. And it serves at an edge between commercial and residential uses. So you can get a picture of what the home looks like. Now, the lot's about 7,900 square feet, and as you can see, to the west of it is a small commercial establishment, and as you go to the north, you have Denny's and then the large commercial area that's near the intersection of 12th Street and Washington Boulevard. To the south is a tire store, and again, you can see that, so the commercial zone is here and then extends along the Washington frontage with residential then to the east on both sides of 13th Street. What makes this piece unusual is back when the Canyon Road Community Plan was developed, rezoning along Washington was done to try to get the zoning to follow lot boundaries and to follow that lot depth off Washington, except in this area. And in the community plan, it states that this area should be looked at as retaining its commercial status. There's no further explanation, but my guess is that idea was because of what is occurring on these sides of the property, and feeling that this would give a better squaring off of that commercial area. So that language exists in the present Canyon Road Community Plan. As the Planning Commission reviewed this, of course, they reviewed the several policies that follow along about creating definite edges, realizing there really is not a definite edge one way or another that occurs here. The house being commercial creates kind of a false sense of an edge between real commercial uses and residential uses because this was a non-conforming residential use. It lost the right to continue to be used as a house once the fire took place and no action was taken to repair the home after 2 years. 1 year is the ordinance time frame, but it's been 2 years and nothing has happened. So it cannot just automatically revert back to a residence without rezoning. So trying to define that edge was one of the policy issues that was discussed with the Planning Commission. The next is zoning should represent the prevailing character of the area. This is where the commission really got into the discussion about what is the character of this area. Is this use really more residential in nature? Or is the character really changing and is it more commercial because of its orientation across the street and to the west? In the recommendation from the Planning Commission, you see it's a 4-3 vote to deny rezoning. And I think this is the major issue that the commissioners who voted one way or the other really looked at is what was their determination of what is the prevailing character of this area in relationship to how this house is. Is this area one in transition and should become more commercial? Or is it really a residential neighborhood and this continues to help stabilize that neighborhood being a home? I think that's why the votes were split as they were. Another factor they looked at is zoning reflecting what's across the street. When you have a local street, the policy says it should be similar zones. Well, to the south is a commercial zone because that lot goes deeper off of Washington. And so this house faces that. So that's one of the policies that in denying the request is consistent because you're keeping commercial facing commercial. And then also the boundaries don't cut across the individual property lines. This does not. This follows an edge that's been established. As I mentioned, the commission really did have a difficult time. This is not a clear unanimous one way or the other. It's a 4-3 vote to recommend denial. Those who voted to recommend denial feel that the overall future of this area is really more commercial, that this would aid in commercial expansion by giving more room for commercial to develop. Recognizing that as a standalone piece, it really cannot function as an independent commercial because there's really no room for parking and a building. The lot's 7,900 square feet, but this area is only 5,500 square feet. And once you put a building there, try to do parking, landscaping, as a standalone commercial becomes very difficult. It really needs to be assimilated into one of these lots to really become more viable as commercial. But on the other hand, the commissioners who voted that it should be commercial should remain and not be rezoned, feeling that the home itself is in such a state that would it really be a benefit to the overall neighborhood to allow it to continue with looking into the back of a tire storage area and those type of things. The recommendation to you with this petition is to deny it. There is no ordinance prepared, so if you wish to consider moving forward this and to approve it, you would have to ask that an ordinance be drawn and then have to set a hearing date at that point for an approval. If you wish to deny it and follow the Planning Commission's recommendation, that is one item you could do tonight. I know the petitioner is here to explain his concerns and his reason why it should be rezoned. And so I've just shared with you the Planning Commission's actions and the considerations that took place in that.
Mr. Montgomery, are there any indications that the neighbors to the, I guess that would be the east? No one came, I know, from the neighborhood, but are most of those rentals, do you have any way of knowing that?
I think it's a mixture. I don't know the exact percentage. We didn't look into that. From what I could tell from the mailings, it's really a mixture of owner-occupied and rentals. I don't know there's a solid preference one way or the other.
But no one came to speak against it in the neighborhood?
But no one came to speak against
okay.
it, yeah.
Mr. Montgomery, also, your recommendation, or the staff's recommendation, was to deny.
Uh-huh.
And, as you've presented this, it isn't a clear-cut thing one way or the other. What was the tipping point for staff to make that recommendation?
I think it was the community plan itself and that specific language that there must have been some real good discussion at that point because it was very unusual to have such direct language regarding that one lot where all the other lots they rezoned on the lot depth.
And would this require a community plan amendment to do this if it was to go residential again?
In my opinion, I would not say so because the real key factor is what is the character of the neighborhood in transitioning. If over that time period since the plan was done, there's a clear indication, the transition really this is not commercial because there's just not been a demand for it. I think that's enough overriding factor to say that policy can be used to determine that it's appropriate to rezone it.
Okay, thank you.
Now, you mentioned that the building has been, or the home has been not occupied for 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
How did the petitioner obtain the property? Was it through a bid?
From my understanding, what took place is the bank took the building over after the fire, and I guess the owner walked away from it at that point, and so they had held the property and then put it up for sale, and the highest bidder was awarded the property.
So within the 2-year period, those commercial entities along Washington did have an opportunity to obtain the property.
Well, not directly, because again, the bank took it over at that point, and until the bank goes through all the things they do, they don't entertain people just, I want the property. They'll go through their processes. And so it's not just open market, I want it right now. Once they open up their bid process, then it can be bid on.
Have they illustrated interest in that property then? The commercial owners?
I am not sure how many people bid on the property, or
Maybe a better question is was it a staged bid process like sometimes they are? You know, owner occupants, rentals, investors?
I am not sure of that. I don't know.
The petitioner probably would know that. We'll ask him.
If it is residential, is there ways that you could buffer this property against commercial?
Well, the key thing would be, maybe going back to this photo here, is on that west side of the home, there, if I remember right, there is a fence there now. And so that is the normal buffer required between commercial and residential.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So in your best guess, if this were to stay commercial, the petitioner's best case scenario would be from one of two businesses to obtain that property.
That'd be my guess of how to make this really functional, because again, as an independent lot, it'd just be very, very difficult to try to do a commercial establishment. And again, you're off the traffic corridor. So the lure of what type of commercial would be there, you're on a local street and no one can see you until they're right up to the street.
And this driveway comes in and off of 13th Street, right?
Correct.
And so if it was still commercial, the only real use for this would be probably parking for those businesses?
Well, depending on how, again, if it's one of the lots to the west that acquires it, it could be parking, it could be maybe the building goes there, the parking is out front, or the building is up front and this becomes the parking in the back. So you could have a couple scenarios take place if it was commercial.
Sure, this is not an easy decision, especially with the odd shape of this lot.
Right.
You know, it's almost like the farther north piece should be part of the Denny's lot, and then the other piece squared off.
But it's not.
Right, it's not. So it's just this is just really a difficult
it's just an
one.
unusual piece, and that's why I think the vote was 4-3.
On that last picture you just had, there's another home next to it, and that home is actually zoned R16,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So right next door.
This has been residential for a number of years in this area.
Use has been residential for, since the house was built. So, looking at the architecture, early 1900s.
Looks like early 50s, maybe even 40s.
It's earlier than that. Yeah.
Hard to say. It looks earlier.
See, 13th Street had been very heavily residential.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Montgomery? And the petitioner is Mr. Hopkins, correct? Thank you.
Come on up.
Thanks for taking the time to consider this. I really appreciate it. So I agree with a lot of what's been said about it being hard to be a commercial lot. I bought it, and after I bought it, I sent out probably about 20 or 30 letters to every commercial, everything is owned commercial within probably a quarter or half a mile, saying that I bought the property. You're welcome. Well, I did this after our last meeting when it was, kind of tied, if you will. And so I thought, well, maybe they can use it. And I have had no interest. The lot right next to it,
There we go.
would probably be of any lot, that might be the one that could maybe use it. And he owns a lot of stuff down here, John Piccolo, and I think that's, anyway, he owns a lot of stuff. You can see those addresses. I'm having trouble here. Anyway, stuff that's really close to it, And I've met with him. I've called him repeatedly and just said, I'll look at any offer, just any offer at all, and I haven't received anything. So I don't know exactly what's up with that. I think, I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'll be brief, but I think that it could be renovated as a home. It was mentioned that there was a fire. Here's some of the rooms inside. Of course, they have, stuff in them, and they're not very nice, but it's a brick home. I mean, brick doesn't burn very easily. I mean, maybe if you put it in a super oven or something, I don't know. But what I do for a living is I buy homes, and the area I've worked most is in West Ogden. There used to be 10 or 12 boarded up homes. Now there's only 2. There were 3. I bought the third one in the tax sale. Now there's just 2 left. And so I fixed them all up, and I've sold them to owner occupants. And I think the area is improving. That's my opinion, but I don't want to toot my horn. So anyway, just really quickly, and then I'll be done. Here is one that we rezoned. It had got downzoned. Greg, could you help me get this so it's clear? I don't know how to use this machine very well.
Amy Sue can help you with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, this is one that was commercial because there was a mechanic shop next to it, and it got zoned that because it wasn't being used for 2 years. This is what the neighbors directly to the right of it said. This house has been a mess for years, a place where people would loiter and do drugs. We're so grateful that you fixed it up and made the neighborhood safe again. Here's another one. This was in West Ogden. This is one of I brought about 10 of them out there that I fixed up and sold. This one actually had a fire. As you can see right here, there's black. And on this one, the people that sold to me were very happy about it, and a lot of the neighbors expressed that as well. I was curious about this question of owner occupants on 13th Street and about the question of what the neighborhood feels. And so my wife and I, we've been married 2 months. She's the redhead right here. We walked it this afternoon, and we just knocked on the doors and said, I drafted up a little thing that said petition to rezone to residential. We just said, what do you guys think? And we didn't have anybody refuse us at all. They just said, yeah, that we're sick of that place being a place where people loiter and do drugs. There was a trailer parked behind it that'd been there for years, and people had been doing drugs and stuff. I got that removed. That's been all taken out. There's no longer a trailer there. You can go look at it. And I just am biting at the bit to clean that house up and renovate it and bring out a lot of the beautiful pioneer features that are in it. Maybe this is a bad medium. I can hand these to you if you want, and you can look at them. This was just, we started at about 5:10, and we just walked the street, and I mean, I was kind of surprised, the people that supported this. I guess that one doesn't have a back. Would you like me to pass these along so you can see them, or? Yeah, you can get copies of those. So let me just show you one more thing, and then I'll shut up and sit down. Basically, I've renovated a lot of stuff, and I just think it's beautiful. I really like my job of trying to make value out of something, and I think it helps the city, but I don't want to, toot my own horn. But I would like to show you a picture of the home, if I can find it. Here we go. There's beautiful, beautiful pioneer woodwork here that I think would be just beautiful. It could just turn really nice. Also, as far as commercial goes, I don't think it's feasible because they require 300 square feet, they require 1 parking lot, and the home has 2,607 square feet. You can look on the tax records. That would require 9 parking lots. This area right here is such a small area, it's hard to get back behind the house, and then how are you going to get back out? I mean, maybe you can do this thing in your car and try to turn around a little bit. I hope to have it be zoned residential. I think a lot of people would like it in the neighborhood. If not, I guess I'll just maybe put a fence up there and make it safe. I don't want it to be a nuisance to the neighborhood, and then just keep on trying to contact people. I'm young, I'm 32, maybe in 50 years or 25 years, I don't know, we can get it to someone who can use it, So anyway.
You know the date of the house? Do you know when it was built?
1902.
1902.
Yeah, it has this beautiful granite foundation here. I fell in love with the house the day I saw it. And to answer the question about was it a closed bid, it came up with a realtor. It was on the multiple listing service. Anybody was able to bid, and I made a bid, and I happened to get lucky and got it. So.
What about the square footage?
The tax records say 2,607. So, I mean, it is a large home. It's, in my opinion, one of these pioneer mansions that would really look beautiful on that street if it were to remain what it was intended for back in 1902.
The question of the driveway, is there access onto the property?
That's a good question. I appreciate your question. Let me show you some pictures to answer that. So here is a picture of it. There's just as much access as this fellow. This is a double driveway. It goes, I don't know what that is, 8 feet or something like that. And this part you can see has had gravel. I talked to the zoning and the planning department, and they said that on homes that have been around for a long time, it is not required to have more than one parking space. But I frankly think that you could fit at least 2 here, just like this fellow is doing. It's just when you get the idea of turning it commercial and getting around the house is kind of a little tricky. So let me show you one more picture. This is a picture from above. Obviously, there's telephone poles, so I don't really know how you're going to do it commercial with that. This would be the only entryway, but obviously they pulled a trailer, a big old camping trailer, back there, and so I guess you can get back there, but it's kind of tricky, So I think if we were to get it rezoned, I would think that I would probably cement back here until about that point, and so you can fit 2 cars there. Any other questions?
Is this, your main purpose would be single dwelling versus multi-dwelling resident?
Yeah, I don't, I hate multifamily, but I'm just gonna tell you, I think this home, it has 1 gas meter, has 1 electric meter. I don't know how I would try to go through the city and get it zoned duplex. That would be I don't think it's possible. But I just want to fix it up the way it's always been, turn it back to a beautiful pioneer home. And yes, if on record, if I have the opportunity, I will turn it back into a single family home.
Well, Mark, I think it's important to note, and you've done that, is the Piccolos, or the property just adjacent to it, which would be the most reasonable commercial use, and he's not shown any interest in this piece of property, as far as you know.
Yeah, I've talked to him. I've actually met with him, and I said to him, I asked him, I just said, please give me an offer. I'll look at anything. I'll look at any offer, and. I've probably made 3 or 4, maybe 5 phone calls, and it seems like, maybe we could just look at this one more time. It seems like it would be in his interest, but everybody has their own interest, and I can't say what his interest is. He owns a lot of stuff around there, but there have been a lot of that coffee shop it was a coffee shop, now it's going to be something, I don't really know what it is, but it's been out of business a lot, and there have been a lot of, frankly, I drive Ogden and 27th Street, a lot of the commercial stuff that's off Washington Boulevard has just been vacant, boarded up, and I would hate to see this. Hate to see that happen to this one as well. Obviously I have a personal interest in it, but I also think it'd be a beautiful addition to the neighborhood.
The other question I have, the enhancement of residential is to separate that from commercial, so that you're not feeling the business part.
Yeah.
And so I think the buffer between residential and commercial is very vital. Have you planned how you would address that situation?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do not have a picture that I can put on the slide, but I probably do on my laptop. It's got such a big, tough fence that even if I were to try to make a commercial, I don't know how I would get advertising unless I somehow get rid of that. But it has a very big fence on the west side. And I was there today, and it just seems like part of the neighborhood. If you'd like, I can dig up, I probably have a picture of that on my laptop, and I can hold it up here and you can see.
Well, I think it's essential to develop that type of a buffer between commercial and residential if it is ruled residential.
The burden of that is for their commercial, though, not for the
Yeah, and the
residents.
buffer's already there. Did you drive by? There's trees and a fence. It's...
Make sure that that is intact at that particular time.
Mr. Montgomery said it was.
It is intact. I can grab the pictures on my laptop and show you. It feels like due to the fact that all the surrounding businesses have entries from Washington Boulevard, even the tire shop, you enter from Washington Boulevard, and this place having a big fence and stuff like that, let me show you here. It just makes it, I don't know, it does not feel commercial to me, and I don't know how. There we go. There's a big fence right there. Maybe I can get a picture. It goes all the way there. It goes, follows the entire lot, and comes back over to here. But this whole thing is a fence right here. You enter a tire. I went there and had my tires done recently, actually. You go in this way, and you just park right there. All of these have entrances off Washington Boulevard, so even if it was turned residential, you're going to have to make a mighty high sign so people can see that there's something there. But I agree with you, and I would be happy to, if that fence needs to be replaced with vinyl or reinforced or whatever, I'd be happy to do that. That's no big deal.
Any other questions for Mr. Hopkins?
Congratulations on your wedding.
Well, I don't know if that's the case yet, but if it is, I'm very grateful.
So you got married 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Didn't you say that?
On your wedding.
I thought you said your way. I couldn't hear. I was like,
oh, sorry.
I'm 32, and
that was on the record also.
I've been trying to make this happen for the last 10 years ever since I got back from my mission, and met her at state conference and just have been working my tail off, and I'm lucky. So anyway.
Help you to make a good impression there.
Men were for sure.
Breath like, no.
Okay.
Would you like the originals?
Any other questions for Mr. Hopkins?
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Good public input.
And we'll now receive public input on the rezone of 420 13th Street. Seeing none. Further discussion from council members.
I've got a few thoughts on this. That it seems, in as much as it's been vacant for 2 years, we've got a property owner that's motivated to rehabilitate it and put it to use as a residence, where it doesn't seem to be likely to go commercial very easily or very quickly. It's not clearly in commercial area because it's kind of on that border. I also value very highly property owners' rights, and that's what the property owner wants to do with it. There's limited commercial buyers. I would make a motion that we table this for the ordinance to be drawn up to vote on at a later date.
To zone it residential.
To zone residential. Mm-hmm.
I would second.
I guess I just want to add, I think we ought to jump for joy when somebody is interested in renovating one of our historic homes as well.
So I seconded that, so you have the motion, so you can discuss it. It burned in July of 2011. I mean, it's been vacant, nothing's happening. If a commercial interest was interested in purchasing it, it was on the MLS, they could have purchased it, they haven't. I just think it makes sense really what we're doing is moving that residential zoning boundary 60 feet to the west. That's it.
And what is the process by that?
So, Mr. Chair, was there a second?
I seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we did have a motion to request an ordinance be drawn from Councilmember Heyer and a second from Councilmember Wicks.
Any further discussion?
Further discussion?
What is the process by which we...
The process would be, with that, then we would draft an ordinance and bring it back. We would not have a date certain, however, in that case.
Mr. Simon? No.
However, second is available.
So he would not make any improvements until we considered that. Is that correct?
I think that would be correct.
Okay.
Mr. Montgomery, in that meantime, this is just hypothetical. If a commercial owner came through and said, I haven't responded to you, but now I want to buy this property, and the current owner, Mr. Hopkins said, great, then that comes to us and we just
Withdraw.
it. Okay.
That's not going to happen. I mean, it hasn't happened in the
I'm
past
just
2
saying that
years.
because it says in here that he did come to the commission or to the planning commission meeting and say he tentatively is thinking of doing that.
Right.
Okay.
Save us too and him as well. Good.
Well, and I think that only came up because he thought that, it had been denied by the planning commission that it was commercial and that was his only choice. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I grew up in that area, and it's always been residential as far as I can see, and I think we've got a home here that was built in 1902, and it has some value, and there's some potential there for the neighborhood. And I think the other key issue is that we're looking at stabilizing the neighborhood in that aspect there.
Well, and there's a pretty solid history of renovating some pretty dilapidated homes.
And I think just weighing the pros and cons, I think the positives outweigh the negatives, making that a residential home. And I think you've all brought up key points of why that is. And
You hate to go against the planning commission, but where it was a 4-3 vote, there was 2 members not there.
2 members
You wouldn't
missing.
know what would have really happened had they all been voting anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a difficult decision
Yeah,
for
it
them
was.
anyway.
Okay.
so with that, this is a voice vote, again, to request an ordinance be drawn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Caitlin. Any opposed? That passes. Next is glass recycling. Mr. Huffaker.
I think he brought samples, and the police were looking over to make sure what was in that sample, I think.
Oh, sure.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight. Mr. Chair, members of the council, Mayor Caldwell, Mr. Johnson. We have searched high and low, as you know, to try and find a way to implement glass recycling in Ogden City. Give you a little bit of a background. We have a very successful recycling program in the city currently with our paper, plastics, and other metal products. And because of that, we get a very good commodity rate, excuse me, when it is sold on the open market. So we had to balance the two. We had to balance the fact that we had a good commodity that we could make money on, and then if we brought glass into the scenario, there was a possibility that we would damage that we would lose the value of that commodity. And so as we searched, we found Momentum Recycling, and and we have been in conversation for roughly over a year, and just recently we've worked out an agreement to allow them to take all of our glass. And when I say all of our glass, I mean that it's not just blue or green or white or brown, that they will take 100% of our glass. It will be located at 3 different locations, Bonneville Park, the Greenway site, and then the parking lot at Ogden High that we worked out an agreement with them. So with that in mind, it is a no cost to us. They will take our glass for free, which was an excellent accommodation. And it kept our commodity clean, so to speak. There still will be some educational piece that we'll have to work on with our residents to make sure that they don't put the glass into our blue recycling cans where the rest of our recyclables go, but it's a win-win for both of us.
Well, and I think with this, you have well-meaning people who put glass in the blue cans, and they don't get caught, and it contaminates the load. And hopefully with this and some education, they'll realize that you have to put it somewhere separately and that we have a place for it now. So
I like the idea that they're willing to collect or take the 100% of our glass, and there's no cost to the city, so that's a benefit.
You also mentioned three. We'll have 3 locations.
3 locations to start with, and if it warrants that we need to expand that, we can expand that as well. They're open to that.
Can you just tell us where they are again?
Yes, Bonneville Park, the Greenway site, and Ogden High parking lot, the south parking lot that is adjacent to Harrison and 30th Street.
Are there any requirements that they're going to have? I can kind of foresee, empty ketchup bottles that maybe aren't very clean. Is that going to be an issue for them?
It shouldn't be an issue for them. They have a very extensive process. I reviewed their site. I went down there in the inception part where it was just a blank warehouse. I was really concerned about it, but I attended their open house and have been down there several times since. And they have a large product, and you can see from the samples that I've delivered to you, they have a wide range of outlets that they can, whether it's a larger glass all the way down to a smaller, finer glass for pools or spas that can be used as a filtration system.
Do they supply the repository, or do we supply that?
They supply that. They take care of that 100%. So again, it's no cost to Ogden City at all. And kind of to go back to answer your question, we will be required from our side, we will be required to maintain that site. So any glass that gets broken, any glass that's on site, we're required to look at it and make sure that it's clean and tidy every day. And as the dumpster becomes full, we will call them and make sure that they can come pick it up.
That was my question. So we will let them know when they need to do it, because that seems, they had a glass bin in Bountiful, and sometimes, well-meaning people would try to put more in, and it was more than overflowing, and you'd end up with a big mess. So.
Sure. And hopefully we can get a timing, it takes X amount of days to get this filled, and so that we can kind of get in a rotation that they will plan on showing up every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, or whatever that is. And then if it warrants it, we can continue to expand that. They're open to that.
Are we going to make a real effort for our restaurants so they know that this is available and where to take it to? Because that's where a lot of the glass is coming from, restaurants. And
that's our intent. Our intent is to try and either get it in the water bill, to get it on the at your service, to get it out there as much as we can, and then continue to promote that, continue to promote that from within and from without. So if we're dropping off a new can, dropping off a new recycling can, it's got a little flyer that says, hey, we now recycle glass. These are the 3 locations.
Don't put it in here.
Don't put it in here. That's right.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, this is great.
No, it
it's
is.
been worked on for many, many years.
There's 2 things that are
For years and finally worked on.
that between this and the prescription drug drop-off at the police station, these are 2 big win-wins for all of us, I think.
We don't want them to confuse the 2 boxes.
We've wanted it for a long time. So.
In a work session, Councilman Heyer suggested another alternative place than the green waste. Will you look at that location?
We will look at that. We want to have it be as easy and convenient for folks as possible. If somebody pulls up with a trailer and they're at the green waste side, we want to make them available so they can get in and get out of there. So those sites are just general locations, and there will be additional sites that will come online as well, I'm sure.
Great.
Thank you.
And it's nice that it's not going to be any cost to the citizens. That is really good. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And the value is the education component of it.
Saves us tipping fees for our trash.
Absolutely.
We need the citizens to use it, though, so that we can, it makes it worthwhile, because they need to make money on it or they won't be interested in doing it very long.
So promote.
Thank you for your efforts, really.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Take a motion.
So I would make a motion that we adopt Joint Resolution 2013-11, supporting the recycling of glass in Ogden City through community drop-off locations.
And I will second.
We have a motion to adopt proposed joint resolution 2013-11 from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Heyer. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier.
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner. Oh, excuse me. Councilmember Gochner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes.
So how long until we have the bins up? How long
How
is
soon
it
can
going
they
to
start?
be, how long will it take to get the bins in place? Sorry.
He needs the exercise.
Current agreement that we have is that it will begin July 1st.
Okay.
So they're working on the bins, and as soon as those are operational, they'll be delivered on site.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make a comment here. I just wanted to thank everybody for all their efforts on this, and this is such a big step forward for Ogden. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff won't have to drive to work with bottles in his car anymore.
And Caitlin, thank you for your continued efforts to keep this on the forefront.
I'm excited.
Okay, next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas.
Wait, we have... Oh, no, go ahead.
Please state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. In this form of government, all city personnel are the responsibility of the administration, not of the council. Please discuss any concerns you may have regarding staff with the mayor, chief administrative officer, or the department directors. Time is yours. Seeing no movement, any comments from the administration?
Yeah, a couple quick things. I too want to add my voice to the chorus of those thanking Perry and Justin and Jay for their hard work in doing this. I know they looked at this from many different angles. It was a real tough nut to crack so that it didn't come at expense to the taxpayers here. And I know this was a real difficult thing to get figured out. You guys did a great job with that, and I appreciate it. And then I also want to thank, right now, the Grassroots Outdoor Alliance Buying Show is going on at the conference center. And before this meeting started, they had an activity out front in the amphitheater where they built 55 bikes they're donating to YCC and the Boys and Girls Club. And so I went down and gave them a personal thank you, but I'd like to recognize that great gift for some of those underserved people in our community. 55 bikes is that's a game-changing event for some of the kids of that age that don't have some of those opportunities. So I wanted to thank them for that real generous donation that they made today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Comments from council staff?
Nothing.
Okay. And other council members?
I attended the 25th Street Historic Street Car Show this week and the Art Festival. What a fabulous turnout. I think Ogden City did a great job of helping to promote this and to encourage citizens to be there, and it was very enjoyable to be down there and see everything packed. I mean, there was not an open space that didn't have a beautiful car or truck or motorcycle. And so thank you for Ogden City and for everybody who worked with that, and Carolyn and her team, and they did a great job. And this weekend, I think, is Damian Lillard at 1 o'clock.
He'll be there a little bit before then. If you want an autograph, you can stand in line.
The nice thing about it is that we've got a lot of activities coming down in the next 2 or 3 months, and so there's something for everyone here in Ogden. So it's a good feeling. We've got the Pioneer Days coming up, and then some of the other activities with the farmers market. So,
any other comments?
Might be nice if we gave the date and time and place for that event for the Damian Lindmer.
It's at the Junction, and the official ceremony is at 1 o'clock.
What day?
Saturday, sorry. Saturday the 15th. 2013 is the year.
At 1 p.m.
At the Junction.
There, like I said, there will be a gathering of people who want his autograph, and he will be signing autographs for a while. So,
okay. Motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. As a reminder, a redevelopment agency meeting will be held immediately following this special city council meeting.